Before I get into the video, there are links in the description for if you want to donate or sign any petitions to help the Black Lives Matter movement, so please go check that out. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to talk about Doctor Who again. I did a video going over the 9th Doctor's run and just like talking about all the episodes that he was in and what I thought of them, and I'm going to do that again today but with the 10th Doctor. So that's what this is. Spoilers for seasons 1 through 4 plus the specials that came after season 4 of Doctor Who. I'm just gonna get right into it.
Also meant to say that I'm not going to be going over the episode summaries during this video because it's already pretty long, and I don't want to make it longer, so yeah.
So the first one that David Tennant is in as the Doctor is the Christmas Invasion, which is the Christmas special that came after season 1. I think this episode is great at like introducing David Tennant's Doctor, even though he's asleep for like all of it. I think the bit at the end where he like basically like wakes up and does the whole like doctor-y thing, I think that's like a pretty good pitch to the audience of like, this is what David Tennant is gonna be like is the Doctor. Like, I don't particularly love Rose in this episode, mostly because she had like a lot more agency in the finale, and this one she just kind of like waits for the Doctor to wake up and do something. I mean, I guess it makes sense because of like, she didn't really know how to deal with the threat they're facing, but also she didn't know how to deal with the threat they were facing in the episode right before this either, and she like absorbed the heart of the TARDIS and like did all that. Like she went into it with the only plan being to like get back to the Doctor, and I don't know, I just feel like she would have done something more. I don't know what. I'm not the writer who got paid to write this, but yeah, I just feel like that was a bit like it was just missing something from Rose. I think the plot was like really stupid, but I think that about most Doctor Who episodes from the Russell T Davies era, because the plots are just really dumb. That's really not what makes the show for me, so I don't really care about that, but like that's just like, it's a stupid plot. It's just dumb. Season 2, the next one is New Earth, which also has a stupid plot. Literally the stupidest solution to like any problem I've ever seen. They're in this hospital. There are also these like lab-grown humans that have been infected with every single disease in the universe to do like research on. And the way they solve that is that the Doctor just like takes all of the medicine and like mixes them together, and then like that's the answer. So now that I've gotten my feelings on that episode clear, I think this episode very clearly like establishes the fact that 10's Doctor has romantic feelings for Rose. I just want to say this about their like romance. I just don't want my Doctor Who to have so much romance. Like, just tone it down. Like, it's fine sometimes, but sometimes it's just a bit too much, and I don't like it. And also the fact that she's like, what, 19, 20? He's like several hundred years old. I don't know, that's just a weird age difference. There's like a weird power dynamic because he is literally like a several hundred-year-old alien with like the most powerful ship in the universe, and she is a girl who worked in a shop. Like, I'm not like disparaging people who work in shops, but my point is that like their like power imbalance is like off the fucking charts. I just think it's weird. It's just weird. But David Tennant's hot, so it's fine. I do think this episode is great at like showing how much the Doctor and Rose care for each other. I think in every other aspect this episode is like completely medium. The face of Bo comes back and is like enigmatically like, there is like a secret that the face of Bo has carried, and he's like gonna tell someone who like wanders and shit. They're clearly like foreshadowing that it's going to be the Doctor, and then he like disappears, and it's like, ooh, what's the mystery? And it comes back like a season later. which is like great forethought. Tooth and Claw is the one in which they go to the 1800s and meet Queen Victoria, and there's like a werewolf also, and they want to like assassinate the queen. I don't know, it's weird. Weird plot again. Rose and the Doctor have this like bet about whether they can get Queen Victoria to say we are not amused, and then she does. I don't know, I just like don't really care for that plot point at all. It's like funny enough, I guess, but it doesn't like add enough to the story for me to be like, yes. It's just kind of like upon a rewatch, it's like, I know, like I get it. They're betting, they're like, this is every day for them. And then Queen Victoria banishes them, which like sucks for her because they keep coming back to her country. Speaking of Queen Victoria, I don't really care about this episode, mostly because I don't really care about the British royal family. I don't mean to like sound shitty. I'm Indian, so like obviously I have problems with the British royal family because they invaded my home country. Like British people in general, like fine, but the British royal family are like literally the ones who are personally responsible. I don't really care. And this was also like, this was during a time, like the time period it's set in is during the time that like India was under British rule, so I just can't find myself like enjoying it. Queen Victoria looking like a stamp, because I know what happened at that point in time. I was gonna say remember, but then you would know that I'm immortal and I can't have that. The next one is School Reunion. In this one, they bring Sarah Jane back. They go to a school, they're like aliens in school. They deal with the aliens in school. K9 is also there. And they also have Mickey in here. I don't like what they're doing with Mickey at all. He deserves so much more. He basically goes like, I'm the tin dog. Like that's one of the things he says, and Sarah Jane like pats him like on the shoulder like it's okay, and I'm just like, dude, he deserves so much more than this. Like Rose is clearly just like, oh doctor, and the doctor is like, I don't fucking care about him, and now the writers also don't fucking care about him, and I cannot stand for that shit at all. The plot is stupid again. I do like seeing Sarah Jane. Like that's like the only thing that I actually like about this episode is like Sarah Jane's there. I think her and Rose's like rivalry is just really stupid. I mean, I could see coming from Rose because she's like pretty young, so like maybe she's just like still immature, but Sarah is like, I don't know, 40, 50, whatever. I just think it's stupid. The Girl in the Fireplace, I think this episode is really gross, mostly because, first of all, there is a scene in which David Tennant is being followed by a horse, and Rose says to the doctor, like, you're not keeping the horse, and he's like, I let you keep Mickey, and I'm just like, comparing a black man to a pet, it's not a good look. Also, this is a problem that like Stephen Moffat's writing in general has. I'll get to that like when I do the doctors that he wrote. Like 10 meets Madame de Pompadour when she's 7, and then meets her again when she's older, and she like clearly has romantic feelings for him. They kiss. He seems to reciprocate them to some like amount. I just think it's gross. I mean, I just like, she's like, the first time you meet her, she's a kid, and then like, I mean, I guess I could see from her side because like kids are, you know, children. If you grow up like idolizing someone, like having a crush on them, like that's not that weird when you are a child. I get it from like a child's perspective, but the fact that he's like reciprocating it, I'd be like, dude, you were just like 7, like what the fuck, like don't, like please don't kiss me, this is weird. Mickey doesn't really get to do anything, he just kind of like waits around. I just think he deserves better. I used to enjoy this episode a lot, but I think after watching it like a couple more times, I just don't really see the appeal of it anymore. Like sure, it's funny sometimes, but like that's not really worth it for what you actually get. The next story is a 2-parter. It's the one in which they go to the parallel universe and Cybermen. This is the introduction to the Cybermen in New Who. I think it's pretty good, mostly because I think they show the Cybermen to like actually be a threat for like the reasons that they were like originally a threat. It's all very like human emotions, like it's humans like worrying about dying. It's, you know, like humans trying to avert death, or I mean it's like one specific human, but like, you know, just like it's a very like human thing that he's trying to do. It's like he's trying to avoid death, and then he creates the Cybermen and they are shown to actually be terrifying. Mickey meets like his counterpart, Ricky. His grandma is still alive in this universe, so he basically, Ricky dies. So Mickey basically just takes his place in the universe, like with his grandma, doing all of the like crime fighting stuff that Ricky was doing. Honestly, good for him. He had to get away from Rose. Like, that girl is not good for him. And Rose also meets her mom, and her dad is still alive in this universe, and there's no Rose. Like, they have a dog that's called Rose, and it's like a joke. I mean, it's kind of funny, I guess. She talks to Pete. She ends up revealing that like she's his daughter from like a parallel universe, and he's like, what the Jackie in this universe like dies, and Pete is just kind of like, peace bro, I've never met you before, you're not my daughter, which, you know, I would react the same way. The next one is the Idiot's Lantern. This is the one in the 50s, the coronation of the Queen Elizabeth II, and there's like this alien that's like eating people's faces through the TV screens in the 50s. I believe it was the 50s. I think it was the 50s. Looked like 50s clothing they were wearing. The only thing that I care about from this episode is when Ten is like, humans are the only creatures that have ever like thought to make edible ball bearings, and I'm like, you are so right, like you are so valid. I just love Ten so much. Like, what a dude. He's just like, look, you can eat these like little ball bearings, and I'm like, damn right you can. Like, it's amazing. This is why Ten is my favorite. I should have said that at the start of this video, that Ten is my favorite, but I didn't like think. I'm like slowly losing it. Anyway, the next two episodes are the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. I love these episodes. I do think the plot is still like kind of dumb, mostly because of all like of the demon Satan stuff that's going on. Basically, they end up on a planet that's orbiting a black hole that has like a force field keeping it from falling in. There's a like research team there, and they're like researching what's generating the force field, and basically there's an earthquake and the TARDIS falls into the ground, and the Doctor and Rose get stuck there, and then there's this guy who like gets possessed by like the devil or something, and that part is really stupid. This episode just does character work for Rose and the Doctor so well. Like, just all of their interactions throughout the episode, I'm just like, these characters are so fantastic. You also get to see like how they've grown from you know, this, from like when they were introduced, like for 10, it's like in the Christmas special with Rose, it's like nearing on 2 seasons for like how long she's been on the show, and it's like she's a completely different person from who she was at the beginning of the show. I just think that's fantastic. There's also this one line that David Tennant says. I keep saying David Tennant instead of the 10th Doctor. There's this one line he says where he goes, "If I believe in anything, I believe in her," and I'm like, I am dying. I just, like, that's the kind of romance I want in Doctor Who. You know, I don't want that lovey-dovey shit. I want this. I want angst in Doctor Who. Doctor Who is not for fluff. Like, that's what AO3 is for. Love and Monsters. This episode is widely known as the garbage episode of Doctor Who. I do think that the like design in this episode is terrible, but also it was like designed by a kid and they decided to put it in the show because the kid won a contest or something. So like, good for that child, who's probably an adult now. And I also think that this episode is so ugly, but the themes, the like message at the end that Elton says, where he's like, the world is so much like better than that, than like just like, you know, getting a job and like you know, just like living your life day to day, like the world is like a much more interesting place. Like that message that he has his little like monologue about at the end. I do think that's a nice message. Also, the like joke at the end is, you know, it's there, and someone thought it would be really funny, but it's not that funny. Now we're on to Fear Her. This is the one in which there's the girl who is like possessed by the alien and the drawings come to life. I'm describing these so vaguely. If you haven't seen Doctor Who, you've already left by now though, so like you're still here. I think this one also, like, it had like good intentions. It just like, I just think it wasn't well written. I think the main problem with this episode is that the plot is stupid and there aren't like strong characters to carry the plot. Like the characters, like Rose and the Doctor are like obviously, you know, very well developed. But the like new characters that are introduced, Chloe and Chloe's mom, they are like pretty one dimensional. They're just not very interesting characters, and that sucks because I would have liked to see this episode be better. I think it has an interesting like idea behind it, but I just think it could have been done a lot better. The next story is the season 2 finale. I don't really care that much about the plot. The plot in this one is not like as stupid as some of the other ones, but I just don't think Doctor Who is good at doing plot. I just think Doctor Who should stick to character. Like as soon as you introduce the premise, it's just kind of like there's no way any of the plots in this thing are gonna be like reasonable. So just like don't even try, you know? This episode like makes me cry a lot. I just, yeah, I think it's fucking good. About Rose, I think this season kind of took her from like being like determined to do the right thing. Like that's kind of the vibe that she was giving off last season, was that the Doctor kind of like showed her how she can like take action to fight for the things that she believes in, and she's like, you know, able to and wants to do that more now. But this season kind of like took that and turned her into more of a like love-struck character, which I just like, I don't know, I didn't get like the same vibe from her in this season as I did in like the last season, like especially comparing like the finale of the last season to like the Christmas special or literally anything else, in which she just like immediately turns to the Doctor and is like, Doctor, what do we do now? In The Girl in the Fireplace, she just like waits for him for like several hours. And I mean I know there's like nothing else she could have done.
What I wanted to say here was that Rose is a character that is fictional and everything she does is written by someone else. So the fact that they decided to write her like this when they didn't have to write her like this is what bothers me.
As for the Doctor in this season, I think that he needs to be a little less in love. I'm gonna say that for this entire freaking Doctor. But I cannot stand the amount of time they spend building a romance between Ten and Rose. Like, I don't care. I would be that devastated if my friend got stuck in a parallel universe as well. You don't need to make romantic love the end-all be-all. And this season did, and I don't like that. And that's why I think this season of Doctor Who fucking sucks. Thank you. I'm done talking about that season, and now I'm gonna talk about the next season. Starting with the Runaway Bride, the only thing I have to say about this entire episode is I freaking love Donna so much. Catherine Tate is a fantastic comedic actor. I'm so glad they decided to bring Donna back for like season 4. There's like no better companion. Donna is my favorite companion, in case that wasn't clear. I think she's fantastic. I think she's hilarious. I think her character development is like gorgeous. This episode did a great start to like Ten's kind of like Time Lord Victorious arc. It's a shame that they waited until the specials at the end of season 4 to conclude that arc. I think it would have been a lot better if they like sort of continue to build up to it during the next 2 seasons, but they don't really do that. They just kind of like pick it up again at the end in the waters of Mars. They're like, hey, surprise, remember how he has issues? They're back, which I'll talk about a bit more in that episode, I guess. But yeah, I think this episode is great. The plot is stupid, but as I've said before, I don't really care about the plot in Doctor Who. I don't watch Doctor Who for plot. I watch Doctor Who for wacky space hijinks and characters. And this episode has both of those. I also think the scene in which Donna like sees the formation of the Earth, like, I think that's stunning. Like, she has like a little freak out. She's like, this is beautiful. That's what I want from my first time viewing of the Earth scenes, of which I guess you can only have that once, because you can only see something for the first time once. It was a good one, like, good job. The next one is Smith and Jones, which is the Jadoon put the hospital on the moon and do like a raid to find an alien. I love Smith and Jones mostly because I love Martha, and I think this is the only episode in which she doesn't get terribly mistreated by, like, not just the Doctor but also the writers. Like, he's just kind of like having a good time. He meets a new companion. He's still heartbroken about Rose. However, like, at least he's treating her like a goddamn person in this. Excuse me, Mr. Doctor. I'll get to it in a second, but I just think that he is like a fucking rude bitch to her a lot, and I don't like it. Once you get to the end of the episode, you're like, she clearly has romantic feelings for him. I think they should have like resolved this in the next episode or two instead of keeping it throughout the entire season. I think that greatly hurts Martha's character and her character development. In the Shakespeare Code, Shakespeare goes like, he looks at Martha and he's like, he's never going to love you, but I will, or something like that. And I'm just like, dude, you should have dropped it like in the next episode. You should have had Martha being like, damn bitch, Shakespeare was right, he's never going to love me. Let me just enjoy the wacky space hijinks, you know, like, try to get over this fucking weirdo. I think the Shakespeare Code didn't need the ET threat. I think that about a lot of the historical episodes. I just think they could have had like a mundane setting kind of story for it. I know they stopped doing pure historicals a long time ago. I just want them to bring them back. I don't think the alien threat was required. However, I do think that the alien threat in this was, you know, it was like an homage to Shakespeare. It was like Shakespeare wrote about witches. The alien threat is witches. They speak in Shakespearean verse. You know, so like, as far as that goes, I think that was good. It like the alien threat was like related to the historical figure that the episode is about. I like that. Also, Shakespeare by, we knew that, but like, I like when a TV show that has literally no historical credit confirms something. It just like, it makes me feel good in my heart. Gridlock, I think, sucks. I don't see the point of this episode apart from like the bit at the end when the face of Bo gives the Doctor like the plot, and the bit when Martha like makes the Doctor sit down and like explain his life story to her, basically, because she's just like, you need to like explain yourself, and she's right. This is also one of the only episodes in which I feel like the Doctor actually cares about Martha. That sounds really mean. Honestly, sometimes while he's chasing her, I feel like he's like more focused on like having fun while like chasing her, like, you know, like doing all of his action heroic garbage, rather than actually like look for this complete stranger, honestly, who he brought to an alien planet and is now missing. I just think they did Martha dirty. More doing Martha dirty, Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks. I just think that Martha deserved better, just as you might say that in like my review of every episode Martha is in. These aren't even reviews, it's just me ranting about Doctor Who at this point. But this is my channel and I can do what I want. I think these 2 episodes get so much shit for being stupid, you know, like penis head Dalek sec. It's not good. But what I do think is interesting is like the way that they kind of explore the Daleks. Like the fact that Sec is like, we need to evolve in order to survive, and like our ideals are wrong, Davros is wrong to create us like this, and I was just like, damn. But as soon as like he takes those steps, he basically like gets betrayed by his own followers, and there's this fucking raw line where I think it's Khan who goes, you told us to imagine and we imagined your irrelevance. And I like screamed the first time I heard that. I was like, holy shit, they're savages. Like, oh my god, oh my god. So like props to the writer for like writing that in, because it was fucking hilarious, and it still is. The Lazarus experiment is stupid, so I'm not going to talk about it. At one point they're like explaining the science behind or like the science fiction behind, you know, the plot, and the doctor is like, this is like an option basically that evolution rejected, and I'm just like, that's not how evolution works. That's not what evolution is. That's not what natural selection is. That's just not what evolution does. Like, I don't know. It bothered me so much, because I'm like, this, like, can you just have the science that actually exists, and can you not get that wrong in the science fiction show? Like, whatever the fuck else you want to do, go be my guest. Be like, you can use this device to like travel instantaneously from this point to another point in space and time, and I'll be like, fine. But you'll be like, evolution does this? No, it does not. It doesn't, okay? It just doesn't. It's stupid. 42 is stupid. The characters all suck. The plot is stupid as always. Martha literally just is a damsel in distress the whole time. Chibnall said while writing this, or like in a behind the scenes thing, that the Doctor is at his best when he's putting out many fires at once. He was completely wrong, and I hate the fact that he is now the Doctor Who showrunner. That's all I have to say about that episode. The next 2 episodes are some of the best that Doctor Who has to offer, in my opinion. Human Nature and the Family of Blood. They're fantastic. The Doctor basically like takes on a form as like a human person. Like, he changes his DNA. It's science fiction, he can do that. What I love about this episode is like the way that it actually explores the Doctor's life, and the fact that he can basically go around doing whatever the fuck he wants, and everyone else has to pay the price. I think this episode was good at that. Also, the acting is like phenomenal. The guy who plays Bane's like fantastic. Once again, Martha is treated like absolute shit. There's this line where like John Smith, the man that the Doctor has like become to hide as a human, he like goes, did he never even like consider like falling in love as an option, basically? Like, that's the gist of it. That hurts me, mostly because like he didn't, not because he's like a lonely man, but he didn't because he's still like in love with Rose. Like, he literally spends this entire season treating Martha like shit because he's constantly comparing her to Rose. He also never really gets called out for it. I think it's good, just like, hey, this is like what it's like to be in this guy's life, and it's terrible. And it is terrible. The next one is Blink. This is the infamous, or famous I guess, Weeping Angels episode. I'm just gonna say, the one thing I don't like about this is when Kathy like goes back in time and the guy literally like stalks her. Like, she's like, leave me alone, and he's like following her, and it's like a joke.
Basically, my problem with this scene is that she says later in the episode that the first guy she met in 1918 or 20 or whenever it was that she ended up in was the guy she ended up marrying. So like, the guy who stalks her is like it's like romantic or something, which is what I find gross about it.
All of the problems I have with his writing were obvious in the episodes that he wrote, in like the one-off episodes that he wrote, but they get like amplified during his run, which I'll talk about at a different time. But that's basically, I just think that was gross. Apart from that, I do enjoy this episode. I think the Weeping Angels are a good antagonist to face, mostly because they have no malicious intent. They're literally just like, this is how they survive. I was originally saying how the Weeping Angels like kill you nicely, and you know, that's like what the doctor says, is like they kill you nicely, but honestly they don't really kill you nicely. They literally uproot your entire life and send you back in time, and you have to like start everything over. I just like, imagine if that happened to you. I was trying to imagine if that happened to me. Like, where would I get money? Where would I get food? How would I live? What if you like butterfly effect yourself into not being alive anymore? So I don't really know why he said like why he wrote in the thing about them like killing you very nicely, because honestly it's kind of a dick move. The season 3 finale is a 3-part finale. It's Utopia, the Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords. This is when the Master comes back. It's John Sims' Master. I have never seen a previous portrayal of the Master, like in Classic Who. I've seen Michelle Gomez and Sacha Dhawan in like New Who, and I love John Sim. I think he's fantastic. I think he's really fun. I think the "You Are Not Alone" reveal was like, yeah, I love late 2000s television. It's okay, plot wise. I think what's like interesting about it is the way that the characters of the Doctor and the Master like interact. Martha gets a lot of character development that happens all off screen. I don't really like that. I like to see characters change as people, especially when it's such a big thing happening to them. I mean, she literally spends a year watching the world go to absolute garbage, traveling the world, telling stories about the Doctor, the man that she still, because the writers hate me personally, has very strong romantic feelings for, because the writers refuse to let Martha live like a normal person. So the fact that she like goes through all of this stuff, and then you just kind of see like how she ends up at the end of that year, because it's such a long time, it's such a significant development in anyone's life to like have to go through all of that stuff, and you never get to see any of her character development. You never get to see like any of the other characters' developments. I mean, Jack comes back. I should have said that earlier. This is the first time you're seeing him since season 1, and there's no character development for him that you get to see on screen. Like, he's introduced as like being like slightly different to the Jack that you know, and it's honestly completely different to the Jack in Torchwood. The fact that they just refuse to show any of these characters actually interacting with these new circumstances on screen. Like, the Master is like, haha, Tocklefane, and then it cuts to a year later. You never like, you don't get to see them like react. At one point the Master, he's like, they broke your heart ever since you learned who they were. Like, I'd love to have seen it. I'd love to have seen the Doctor's heart breaking. Unfortunately I didn't. I just get to see the aftermath. I would have loved to see like his anger and frustration, and honestly it never really affects any of these characters after this point. Like, I mean, Martha leaves, which is good for her. God knows the Doctor doesn't care enough about her to treat her like a person. Before she leaves, she goes, I spent a lot of time with you thinking I was second best, but you know what, I am good. And I'm just like, listen, I don't know why the writers waited for this point in the season to like give Martha that realization. I think the season would have been a lot more interesting if she saw herself as his equal, rather than like, you know, thinking like he was super awesome and like she wasn't. Like, she's a fantastic character, and she's incredibly clever, and the fact that they throw away all of her potential. Ten never gets yelled at for not, you know, treating her well. He kind of just spends the entire season comparing her to Rose, going like, oh, Rose would know, Rose would understand this. Rose would know what to do. And she's like, okay, fine then. And I'm just like, yell at him, like slap him. He's being such an asshole. And the writers don't really seem to have a problem with that per se, because they just kind of make him do the same thing over and over again, and never really like does any character, especially Martha, ever go like, hey, this is not okay. You have to like treat me like my own person instead of keep comparing me to Rose. But apart from that, this season was pretty good. I think it would have been a lot better if they just, you know, gave Martha the treatment she deserved. Anyway, on to Voyage of the Damned now. I think this episode is good. I like Kylie Minogue. I don't really know much about her, but I saw her in this and she seemed pretty good. This is the kind of 10th Doctor content that I like to see. I like to see him like happy and hopeful. Or like losing it, like in The Waters of Mars. I think that this episode is just really showing the best of humanity, even though technically they're not humans, they're aliens. It's just like people cooperating with each other, working together to like survive, saving each other. Is fantastic. It has like a slight amount of foreshadowing for the Time Lord Victorious arc where the guy who's like the tour guide person for the ship goes, I know you didn't want him to live out of all of the people, but if you could choose, that would make you like a monster. I wish there was more than just a bit of foreshadowing. I don't really think this was the episode for it. Out of all of the episodes that Doctor Who has, what they did in Human Nature and Family of Blood was great with the rage. I think it would have been great to have him go a little bit further and be like, hey, maybe he's losing it, because he is. So anyway, the next episode is Partners in Crime, and that's the one in which Donna comes back. I literally don't care about this episode at all. I think the plot is so stupid. But I love Donna, and that's what I really care about in my Doctor Who. It's Donna Noble. Literally everyone else can perish. I don't even care about the freaking Doctor. As long as Donna is there, I'm good. So the one after that is the Fires of Pompeii. This is the one in which they go to Pompeii and they have to like blow it up. If this was like a recent thing, this would be such a big yikes. I mean, I still think it's a yikes, but like, at least it was really long ago and like no one from then is still alive apart from me. I think this episode is like good for showing the Doctor's like moral dilemmas and stuff. I think the plot is really stupid. I think the whole being able to see the future because of the Pyrovillians fire time garbage, I think that's stupid, but that's just my onion. Planet of the Ood, I was sort of like when they were like, oh, they were basically like slaves in the Impossible Planet, and I mean, I guess they addressed that. The only part of this episode that I was like, this is so insanely ridiculous, was when the guy who's like the evil capitalist dude gets turned into an Ood by Ood Sigma. I just think that's dumb. Apart from that, this episode made me cry a lot. Not that that's hard to do, but that's just something that happened, is that I cried a lot. Sontaran's stratagem and the Poison Sky. Martha comes back in this. I think that for what it is, it's like a solid episode. I think the kid who has the academy, Radigan, he's just sad, like he just needs friends. But he's dead now, so it doesn't matter. I'm so mean. The Doctor's Daughter is an episode, it had a lot going for it, I guess. I mean, Jenny is an interesting character. I think it sucks that they separated Martha from main characters in this episode. Like, it's the Doctor, Donna, and Jenny, and then also like Martha is there, like in a completely different place. It's not what Martha deserves. Maybe it's what the story needed, but it's not what Martha needed, and I just She just deserves better. She shouldn't have come in this stupid episode. Also, they brought Jenny back at the end, but then they never did anything with it. They should have just killed her. Like, just, I know it sucks, but just like you already killed her, you know? You don't have to like bring her back at the end if you're not gonna do anything with her. But she hasn't come back yet, so I'm assuming she's never gonna come back to the show. And they just did that for no reason. The Unicorn and the Wasp is the one with Agatha Christie. Once again, I think they could have just had like a normal Agatha Christie-esque story without any aliens in it. Maybe just some robbers and like a murder or two. But they decided to go the alien route. I mean, I guess it like works because, you know, it's still, the episode itself is still like an homage to Agatha Christie's like works with, you know, like detective stories and everything. But they just don't need the alien threats. I think they should stop doing historicals that have alien threats in them because they're always so much worse than a pure historical would be. I think I should just be hired to like tell the Doctor Who writers that plot is dumb every time they bring up a plot. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. These two episodes, a lot of people like them. I like them, but like now that I know what River's actually like, I like hate them. Like if I consider the River in these episodes to be a completely different character to the River that you see like later in season 6 onward, I'm good. Like, she's cool here, she's interesting, she's compelling. You're like, who is she? The mystery kind of ruins it for me, and that's what I don't like about this episode. Apart from that, I think it's devastating to like have the foreshadowing about Donna like not being in the Doctor's life in the future. The snap to open the doors thing is, I mean, I guess it's like cool, but like keys are fine, you know, like having keys is like not a bad thing. Midnight is the best episode of Doctor Who that exists. Someone else said this. I'm gonna try to like link their video in the description if I can find it. Someone else said that if Voyage of the Damned is like the best of humanity, Midnight is the worst of humanity. I think they're completely right. This episode is just like, it's fantastic. The acting in this is fantastic. The directing, the music, the script, the score, everything is just, it's just so great. It's just fantastic. There's no flaw in this episode. Sometimes I say that like no work of art is perfect, but like this work of art is perfect. There's not, like, this episode is just perfect. It's just ideal, like ideal episode. It makes me scream in agony every time, and yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It's just like, it's such a good episode. It just makes you like consider questions and see David Tennant like screaming in agony, which is really sad because, you know, like I love him. Seems like a nice person, and he hot. Turn Left is the one in which Donna like basically ends up creating an alternate timeline, and this kills me every time because like you see the entire world go to shit just because she never met the Doctor like that one time. It also sets up pretty well like how she has changed as a person by like meeting the Doctor and being his companion, as opposed to like how she may have ended up if like character wise, if she wasn't, you know, like if she never met him, if she like never had those life-changing experiences, which I think is great. Rose also comes back. I think that Rose in this episode seems a lot more like the Rose from season 1 than Rose did in season 2. I think this episode also sets up like how significant it was that like Donna met the Doctor at all, which like sets up the whole like Khan manipulating the timelines thing, which I don't really know how that works, but frankly I don't care. It's Doctor Who, it's not that deep. Okay, then there's the season finale, which is a two-parter. It's the Stolen Earth and Journey's End. This is basically when all, like, a bunch of the planets get stolen, and it's the Daleks, and they're just gonna kill everything in reality. This is the stupidest plan I have ever heard in my entire life. But I guess the Daleks are just idiots, so it's fine. It's like the stakes are so high that it doesn't even matter what happens, because it's just like all of reality. It's just, you know, all of reality is like too big for you to imagine. If they were like, we're gonna kill like these specific 10 people who you are, you know, like the companions of the Doctor, I would have been way more like alarmed than being like, oh, everyone gonna die. I think the two doctors thing is stupid, like the meta-crisis doctor. It's just, it kind of feels like Russell T Davies pulled that out of his ass because he wrote himself into a corner and he didn't really know what to do next. Donna having his mind think, I think that's dumb, because it also feels like he pulled it out of his ass. It basically feels like he got to a point where he was writing and went, I don't really know what to do now, and he decided to be like, oh, there's like another David Tennant, and then Donna is like a genius now, and that's the whole thing. And then we watched it because of course we did. I think it's horrible the way that they decided to end on a story. It's not even like something that I'm like, oh, it's a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. It's just like, it's just shit. Like, it's just f***ing terrible, and I don't know why they decided to do it. I think it's just stupid. There, like, you could have done literally anything else. Now that the season has come to an end and you want Catherine Tate to leave, her contract is up. You could have just come up with literally any other solution apart from getting the Doctor to like wipe her mind and erase all of the fantastic character development we've seen. Like, it's not like, oh, sad and tragic. It's just like infuriating and frustrating. I'm not devastated that Donna left. I'm mad at the writers for like deciding to end a character's journey in like such a disgustingly stupid place, which is literally exactly where they started. Like you spent a whole season getting to know her and getting to see her grow and change as a person, and now she's back at square one. She doesn't remember anything that happened to her, and as far as she's concerned, the events that you've seen, they never happened. I don't think that's interesting or compelling. The next Doctor is a Christmas special, which is completely useless. It's literally just a man who thinks he's the Doctor because he like absorbed a memory bank of the Doctor, and literally like it's useless. The only notable thing I would say is the lady who becomes the Cyberman is like smart. Like, she's smart, and that's like how they defeat the big bad, is they're just like, hey, look at what you did, and she's like, oh f-. And then her brain is like so powerful that she can just like override all of the cyber controls or whatever, which is good for her, I guess. Planet of the Dead is more fluff. I think the only thing that these two specials actually do is like make the Doctor go like, I am so lonely, everyone leaves me in the end, which sucks for him, but like also you're the one who like wiped Donna's mind. That one's kind of on you. I just think Donna deserved better. That's what I'm gonna say about all of the companions in the show. They all deserved better. They deserve better writers. The only thing I find interesting is like the scientist character who's called Malcolm, and that's just because he's like a fanboy, and it's kind of like sweet to see Ten being like, oh, like he's like appreciative. Like, that's nice. But apart from that, this episode is completely like average in every single way. The Waters of Mars it's the second last story that David Tennant is in as the 10th Doctor, like during his run as the Doctor. This is the one in which like they basically conclude his Time Lord Victorious arc after doing no work for it, pretty much. Like that they gave you like 2 hints before in his like tenure as the doctor, and then in this one they're like, okay, like shit, he's gonna leave, we have to do everything now. And he basically is like, I'm going to change the fixed point in time, and then the lady who was supposed to die like kills herself to like maintain the timeline, and he's like, oh, I fucked up, which is like, yeah, I guess you did, but also they never like say why it would be bad if Adelaide Brooks, that's her name, if Adelaide never like dies. They never say what's so bad about that, because it's like she inspires her granddaughter to go on like a mission that kind of starts off humankind's like diplomacy with the universe. But she doesn't have to die for that, does she? I mean, she can inspire her while she's still alive. They never explain why it's so imperative for this woman to die. What will change? Nothing about the future of humanity will change, will it? Like, you could have shown that at some point. I mean, there's a bit where he takes them to Earth outside Adelaide's house, and there's this bit where there's this montage of like news articles, and it's just like headlines of the events that he's changed. And I'm like, why couldn't you do something like that? But instead of, you know, showing it that like these people have lived, you show the consequence of like these people being alive still, is like, rather than there just being articles about these people surviving the like Mars base catastrophe. Humankind doesn't get to the stars until like thousands of years later, or I don't know, like just something drastic like that, where it's like this one thing happening really was that important. Like, she really had to die in order for this thing to happen, because they never explain why everything just wouldn't be fine if she, you know, it just inspires her descendants by living a long and happy life. Like, why can't she just do that? But they never really explain it, so for that reason I think it's stupid. Also, the like bad guy in this thing is water, which was a choice, and decisions were made. I'm moving on now. This is the final story that David Tennant appears in during his tenure as the 10th Doctor. He's also in the Day of the Doctor, but I'll talk about that later. The End of Time, part 1 and 2, they're with John Sims Master. I think that these episodes are so goddamn stupid.
I didn't have a good place to put this in, so I just decided to do it here. Basically, one of the things that happens in this two-parter is that the Master, like, sends a message to Gallifrey, basically, and is trying to bring Gallifrey to Earth, and it's just, I didn't talk about it mostly because it was so insanely stupid that that entire plot thing just completely slipped my mind, because I just wanted to erase it from my memory, I guess. All I have to say about that is that it was really dumb and doesn't make any sense, and it's just not good. So that's what I think about that.
The only thing I like about these episodes are Wilf. Literally everything else sucks. John Sims Master had like chaotic energy, but now he just has like, the writers didn't really know what to do with him, so they just turned the chaotic up to like 1,000 energy. Like, that's the energy he has now. He also like has this weird white hair and lightning stuff going on, and he can like jump really high. I don't think that was necessary in order to tell the story, but choices were made. He turns everyone in the world into himself, which is the stupidest goddamn plot point I have ever heard in my entire life. The only compelling thing that happens in this story is the Time Lord woman who like talks to Wilf. Everything with her and Wilf is interesting, and then at the end when Wilf is like in the radiation chamber and the doctor steps into like the other radiation chamber and releases Wilf, like that part of the story is interesting. Apart from that, these episodes are not really that interesting. I know a lot of people don't like the big long ending thing they do with David Tennant just going around and like saying goodbye to like every single companion he's ever met. But I think it's sweet. It's just like the show is saying goodbye to itself. You know, they were changing all of the cast pretty much. And the showrunner was changing, and I don't know, I guess a lot of the production team was also leaving, and there were going to be new people coming in. So it was like pretty much a complete overhaul of everything they were doing as like a creative team together. And it was just the show being like, hey, this fucking sucks. Let's put a bit in the show to say goodbye to ourselves, which, you know, it doesn't make for the best storytelling, but it does give you enough time to cry, which I cry in like every single thing that I ever watch. So from that perspective, it's pretty good because you have a lot of time to cry. And also, it's just sweet to see everyone that we've been seeing for all this time, and like, I don't know, just be like, hey, like it's been good, like chill fam, have a good time. Apart from that, I don't really have anything to say about the episodes in particular. I do think that the 10th Doctor's character development could have been a lot more interesting, especially if they really leaned into the whole Time Lord Victorious concept that they kind of started out with. Maybe if they kind of like peppered it in a bit during season 3, and then, you know, like towards the end of season 3 when like Human Nature and Family of Blood happens, you see him get super angry and use the power that he has as, you know, someone who, like, I don't really know how exactly he does like the mirror stuff, but, you know, like as someone who has access to all this technology, if they'd gone that route, I think it would have been a lot more compelling, because 10 mostly just stays the same as a character. He's not very different in End of Time, apart from being like more upset about life in general, which makes sense. But apart from that, he doesn't really change much as a character. He's still fundamentally exactly the same in pretty much every single way, except now he like cries a lot more. So in that way, I do think that they could have done better. This has been a very long video. I'm gonna sleep now. Okay, bye.